Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's John with Midrange TCG, and we're going to talk about some new spoilers that came out. So, starting for today, September 13th, this morning I reviewed a couple of cards that ended with Mission Briefing, which was one of the newest cards that got released today. And so, I want to go back and I want to just talk about some of these new cards that just got leaked out today. So many new cards, so many new cards. And I want to start with Mission Briefing. Now, blue for an instant, Surveil 2, you can choose an instant or sorcery card in your graveyard. You can cast that card this turn. If it would be put into your graveyard this turn instead, exile it. Great card. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's literally, there's so many talks about it on Reddit about being the next potential like a neutered version of a Snapcaster Mage, but it's still such a really good card. Mission Briefing. The fact that you can just, you know, cast a lightning strike for 3, or cast a lightning strike for 2 mana, right? And then you surveil 2 as well. So what you can do is you can scry the top cards of your deck. Oh, maybe instead of a lightning strike, I can find I don't know, a fight with fire, right? I can cast a fight with fire for 10, an example. Just little stuff like that. Anyways, Mission Briefing is just a really good card. I don't think there's anything else we need to talk about regarding this card. Right now, it's like super hyped up on TCG Player. I believe the card's going for somewhere in the $20 range as of right now. Obviously, it's a blue instant speed, so we're probably going to see some play regarding this card in Modern. And just looking at Dimir, if you've been following the sort of like the pattern which Dimir has been moving towards, it's not so much moving in the mill format that we've been seeing for a while now, but instead what they're doing is they're utilizing Surveil. And what they're doing is they're sort of capturing the idea of Surveil and being able to work their way around it. Just because, Dimir is technically supposed to be a guild full of spies and full of like deception and stuff like that. And so what we're seeing now is a slow turn that goes from, they're abusing the Surveil mechanic, such as with cards like Thoughtbound Phantasm, and other cards that just have really good synergy with Surveil. So regarding Mission Briefing, I think this card's going to be great. I don't think it's worth the current price tag. I think it'll probably fall somewhere in the 8 to 10 range. Honestly, that's where I think it's going to be. Just because not every single blue deck wants to play it. At least that's how I see it, right? I mean, if you look at like dual color decks, sure, but they do have other cards that sort of work around it. So I don't know if Mission Briefing is as great of a card as people are hyping it up to be, but I do think it is a pretty good card. Next, you have Darkblade Agent, so it's 1 blue-black for a 2/3. So Dimir colors, it's a human assassin. As long as you surveil this turn, Darkblade Agent has Death Touch, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. Obviously, this is one of the better cards. This is kind of like a better version of there's that Dire Fleet. I believe it's Dire Fleet Plunder, or I don't know. It's a I can't tell if it's a 3 mana, 4 mana, or a 5 mana 3/3 from Ixalan. I believe it's a 5 mana 3/3. And it says, if you've ascended and it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So it's kind of like that, except this card is pretty much just as long as you've surveilled this turn. And plus, adding Death Touch onto a 3/3, a 3 mana 2/3 is pretty good, because essentially you tell your opponent, like, would you like to block, or would you like to, trade a creature? And most of the time, they're willing to trade a creature because they don't want you drawing that card. So I think Darkblade Agent is actually really good. Probably one of the cards that you do have to run as a staple inside Dimir if you are playing the creature variant. So I think this card is actually pretty awesome. And moving on, Doom Whisperer. So 3 black for a 6/6 flying trample, pay 2, surveil 2. This card is awesome. Honestly, this card is awesome. We have our demon of the set. 5 mana 6/6 is really good. And on top of that, it's got flying and trample, so it's very similar to Demon Lord Belzenlock, except this card says pay 2 life, surveil 2. So you have a lot of synergy that can go into Doom Whisperer, right, with Darkblade Agent, or you can Doom Whisperer into like Mission Briefing or something like that. So allowing you to pitch those key cards into your graveyard. Also, if you have like the Jumpstart mechanic, those seem to work together. Like the Surveil and the Jumpstart mechanic are actually pretty good together. And also, Doom Whisperer works very well with Thoughtbound Phantasm. So Thoughtbound Phantasm, moving on, is a 1 blue. So it's a 1 mana, so it's a single blue for a 2/2 Defender Spirit. So this card already, as we can tell, it works with Supreme Phantom, right? Because it's a Spirit card, and obviously, there's talks of of spirits potentially coming back in modern. There was a lot of talk about banned spirits, or was it blue white spirits, Azoria spirits, something like that, collected company spirits. And I think Thoughtbound Phantasm has the potential in standard, at least not in modern, but at least in standard, to be a very good aggressive threat card, right? Because if we look at it, Thoughtbound Phantasm is a 1 mana 2/2 defender, and that's totally fine because his ability says as long as he has 3 or more +1/+1 counters on it, he can attack as if he didn't have defender. So I mean, it kind of sucks that this card doesn't have flying. It'd be much cooler if this card did have flying. It would, fit a lot more with the flavor text. But just the fact that it's a 1 mana 2/2 defending creature means it's actually really strong against like red. It's really strong against like white. It's just overall a pretty good card. And plus, by the time you can attack with it, it's a 5/5. So it's a 1 mana 5/5 investment. And then whenever you surveil, you put a +1/+1 counter on Thoughtbound Phantasm. So I think that's really good. For an uncommon, I think that's actually pretty good. I do wish he had flying, like I said, because that would actually probably push Dimir into like being a tier 1 deck, just being able to throw out a Phantasm on turn 1, Mission Briefing on turn 2, right? Excuse me, not Mission Briefing on turn 2, but like another Scry card on turn 2. Surveil card on turn 2, right? And then turn 3 you can hold a counter spell, right? You counter spell, get another +1/+1, right? And the next turn you go mission briefing, counter spell, or mission briefing, play another card, and you get a third surveil, and you get to swing for 5. So I guess that's pretty cool. Next we have City Watch Sphinx. So this is 5 and a blue for flying. When it dies, surveil 2, 5/4. Not much to say. It's a very okay card. Just another Sphinx in the archetype, although a lot of them recently rotated. We did lose one of the better Sphinxes, or we are losing one of the better Sphinxes from, I believe it's the Amonkhet block. So, I mean, sure, we have a Sphinx, I guess, in this set, but it's not that great. Not as good as Doom Whisperer. This card is a mythic rare. I don't think it's worth being a mythic, but I guess in order to push Dimir over the edge, potentially could be very good, because it is pay 2 life, surveil 2, and you can play that as many times as you want, which sort of feeds into like zombies, because essentially you get to decide whether you want to put any number of them onto the graveyard or on top of your library in whichever order. So on the stack, you can be surveil 2, surveil 2, surveil 2, pay 6 life, surveil 6 cards, and then the way that it resolves is, I believe, the way that it resolves is you surveil for 6, and then you can rearrange those cards in any order, or you can bin whatever cards you don't want, and then keep the other cards in that order. Next, you have Lazav the Multifarious. So this is blue and black for a legendary shapeshifter. Pretty good, honestly. 2 mana, legendary, means we can potentially see Mox Amber in standard rotation again. Although we do have to consider that, what are its stats? So let's take a look. It's 2 mana for a 1/3. When it enters the battlefield, surveil 1. And then X, it becomes a copy of target creature card in your graveyard with converted mana cost X, except its name is Lazav the Multifarious. It's a legendary in addition to its other types, and it has this ability. So I think that'd be kind of cool, because what you can do is you can go Lazav into Thoughtbound, and then you can put +1/+1 counters on him, so when he goes back to being himself, he gets an additional +1/+1. So I think that's pretty cool. Also, just being able to transform him into something like a Flying Death Touch, or like a Flying Haste, or something like that, or even like a Doom Whisperer, so you can surveil even more. I think that's pretty awesome. So I do look forward to this card being potentially very good. It is a mythic, and we could potentially see some really good cards that come along with it. I think this card might be good in Modern if someone can find a way to, abuse Lazav's effect with Walking Ballista. So maybe if you have like a very late game, you got mana sinks, or you have a way to make infinite mana, what you can do is you can pay X, convert him into Walking Ballista, and then just start piling counters on top of him. So you can pile counters on top of him, and then you can just use the Walking Ballista effect to start pinging your opponent. And because he's a 1/3, sorry, when he transforms, if you just like leave one +1/+1 counter on him, the next turn you can still do it over again. And it's just, I think he's a really cool card, honestly. I don't know exactly what cards he could copy, like maybe Doom Whisperer, the fact that he can transform into a 6/6. And he can, Scry 2 Surveil 2 pay with Flying Trample. Just the fact that he can copy Muldrotha, I think, is pretty cool. If you can play them, you can play him potentially in a Sultai deck, right? If you have Lazav the Multifarious on turn 2, you've got a Muldrotha in your graveyard, and then turn 3, you find a way to start pitching cards in your graveyard, and by turn 4, turn 5. Oh no, it's converted mana cost. Never mind. Okay, maybe he's not as good, but I guess he still could be good as like, I don't know, maybe like an Izareth the Awakener or something, where he can like copy its ability. I guess, I don't know. I don't see a lot of potential in him right now. I think he's still a good card, just because he can copy stuff in your graveyard. Like, he can copy a Stitcher Supplier. He can copy like your graveyard marshals, and then you can pay 2 additional mana to exile another creature, or you can exile that graveyard marshal and just make a copy of a token. So I guess that's okay. Next we've got Garrison Sergeant. Let me see what that ability is. So Garrison Sergeant says he is. It has double strike if you control a gate. That's right. So the 5 mana 3/3 double strike if you control a gate. I think this card's like very whatever. Legion's Guildmage, red white 2/2, 5 red tap deal 3 damage, 2 white tap tap another target creature. These 2 cards I think are like very whatever. I don't think Boros has like a lot of really good cards. So next you got Bodyguard, Mentor, can't attack or block alone. This card's whatever, honestly. Nothing special about it. Next you've got Glowspore Shaman. So black and a green for a 3/1. When Glowspore Shaman enters the battlefield, put the top 2 cards of your library into the graveyard. You may put a land card from your graveyard on top of your library. So this is kind of like a pseudo Explorer, but it's also kind of like Stitcher Supplier. So the fact that you can go Stitcher Supplier, turn 2 play a Forest, and then play Glowspore Shaman, and readjust your mana for turn 3, and you can go like turn 3 play a I don't know, Graveyard Marshal, an example, or just start pitching cards in your graveyard. Also, she sort of guarantees that you get your 3rd land drop, which is also kind of cool. You dig 3 deep, get a land drop, put it on top of your deck, you have to draw next turn. It's pretty cool. Skynet Legionnaire, I believe this is Flying Haste for a 3 mana 2/2, and then we have Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. Now, a lot of talk about this card and its potential in Angels, in Boros Angels. So Exemplar of Justice is 2 red white for a 2/5 with Flying Mentor. At the beginning of combat in your turn, choose up to 1 target creature you control. If that creature gets +2/+0 and gains Trample if it's red, and gains Vigilance if it's white. So I guess she just gives a creature +2/+0 just in general. And then if it's red, gives it Trample. If it's white, give it Vigilance. I think that's okay. The fact that you can actually give Lyra Dawnbringer Vigilance, I think, is pretty good. The fact that you can give any sort of red creature Trample is pretty good. Like Lyra will essentially just make it like a 7/5 with First Strike, Lifelink, and Vigilance. I think that's really cool. But I think Shalai is still a little bit better, just because like even though like Aurelia can't really push through Shalai in terms of like just raw stats and their ability, the fact that you can play Shalai in a green-white deck and you play mid-range is just much better. And she gives like your board hexproof, so I guess that's I personally think that's a little bit better than Aurelia. But I think Aurelia, the +2/+0 is definitely very relevant, and it definitely could sort of break like a stalemate. Next we have Okran Assassin. So 1 black-green, 1/1 Death Touch. All creatures able to block Okran Assassin must do so. I think this card works much better with pump spells, just because the fact that your opponent can decide to block, and what you can do is you just be like, okay, well, in response to you blocking, like I can only assign one damage. So only being able to assign 1 damage is not that great, because only 1 creature will die, and then you're essentially paying 3 mana for a removal spell, right? And as we've seen from cards like Assassin's Trophy, or cards from there's that card that kills the legendary. It only costs 2 if it destroys the legendary creature. Those cards I think are just inherently better. So, but this card definitely can get rid of like a Garnish Tyrant or something like that. So definitely one of the coolest cards of the set for like just creature based removal, like spot removal 1/1s. Next we have Knight of Autumn. So 1 green-white for a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on Knight of Autumn, or destroy target enchantment. You gain 4 life. So that's pretty cool. So the fact that she's a 3 mana 4/3 is pretty awesome, and you can destroy enchantment or artifact and gain 4 life. So she's kind of like another copy of Brontodon, but she's not as strong because Brontodon's a 3/4, pay 1 sack. But her ability is pretty cool because she has an ETB effect, which has 2 modes. So the first one, you destroy the Flame of Keld and you gain 4 life, or the second ability is you put 3 +1/+1 counters on her and hope your opponent has a lightning strike to deal with her. So I guess in that sense, pretty cool. Definitely pretty cool. Affectionate Intrigue, next card. 5 and a green for a 4/4. When it enters the battlefield, you can have it fight target creature you don't control. Very vanilla card. Nothing special to say about that. And then here we have the alternate artwork for Vrask Golgari Queen. And it's 4/4, obviously +2, sack a permanent. If you do gain 1 life, draw a card. -2, destroy target non-permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. And -9, you get an emblem with whenever creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. Pretty much the same thing as Vraska Relic Seeker's ultimate. Next, we've got Venerated Loxodon, so 4 and a green, 4 and a white for 4/4. Convoke. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that convoked it. Wow. Okay, I think Venerated Loxodon is probably one of the coolest cards so far. So talking about the previous combo involving March of the Multitudes and just that nice little curve. What you can do now is essentially you go turn 2, play Sapling Migration, turn 3, play Spore Swarm, and then turn 4, you play a Venerated Loxodon by tapping all your creatures for free, right? So you have 5 mana plus 3, so you've got 8. You can play the Venerated Loxodon. If you played additional mana, you can also play Huatli, and you can uptick Huatli. Or your other option is you play Song of Freyalise, and either or, you're still tapping your creatures for mana, so that's still really good. And I mean, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that convoked it. I think that's awesome, absolutely awesome, because that means you get to put five +1/+1 counters distributed amongst 5 targets you control, and you get to make a 4/4 body on top of that. I think definitely a really cool card. Honestly, I'm probably gonna pick up a playset of these just to like test it out, see what the flavor is with regards to March of the Multitudes, and play around that. Next, we got Blood Operative, so it's 1 black for a Vampire Assassin. So it's a 3/1 lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile target card from a graveyard. When you surveil, if Blood Operative is in your graveyard, you can pay 3 life. If you do, return it to your hand. Honestly, I think this card would be much cooler if it was ETB, exile target card from a graveyard, and then on top of that, it had Flash lifelink. I think it would have been much cooler. Because if you really think about it, 1 black for a 3/1, it's very okay. And the fact that you can't play its ability on the stack, kind of makes it like very whatever. But I guess the returning effect, the fact that you can pay 3 life to have it come back to your hand is pretty good, I guess, in that sense. The thing is, we're hoping for more drain cards, I guess, with black, because usually black's pseudo removal is also in drain, or pseudo like damage mills are also in drain abilities. So the fact that you gain a life, your opponent loses a life. I understand that's more so like Orzhov colors, but definitely we can still. I think Flash Lifelink would have been much better, because now you can counter cards like, Mission Briefing, where your opponent goes Mission Briefing, select the card, cast it for free. Okay, in response to you casting it, I'm going to exile on the stack, so be pretty awesome, right? Because your opponent gets to select. They get to select what card they want to use. Right, you can cast that card this turn. So you get to choose an instant sorcery card. Your opponent responds by playing this card on the stack with Flash, and then you just sort of fizzle it. So I guess that's much cooler. It's much better interaction, I think, than simply ETB exile target card from a graveyard. So I guess Blood Operative in that sense requires a bit more foreplanning. But yeah, that's about it for today's spoilers. I'm sorry I kind of rushed through it, but all I can say is, I think this is going to be a really awesome set, and I'm already like super hyped up. We've got probably 150 cards now, give or take, and all of them seem to be pretty good cards. So I'm mostly looking forward to Selesnya as the guild. Dimir has piqued my interest recently, because we've gotten a lot more Dimir cards that seem to be doing stuff, and I think that's pretty awesome. But I guess Vraska for now is still the prize card of the set, being able to get her as the mythic, because she is the cover of the of Guilds of Ravnica. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Once again, John with Midrange TCG, signing out.